This is a brief overview of 6 types of research study. We'll look at each study type in order of the hierarchy of evidence, from weakest to strongest. Let's start with case reports. A case report is an observation of an outcome, such as a disease, and an exposure, such as consumption of certain foods or medications. A case series is a small number of cases, often as little as 2 or 3. By themselves, case reports are the weakest study type in the hierarchy of evidence, but they may be useful in suggesting to researchers that they conduct one of the more robust types of study. Ecological studies look at very large groups of people, typically entire countries, although they can be smaller than that. Ecological studies compare the rates of exposure and outcome between the groups and try to draw conclusions from the comparison. A significant problem with ecological studies is that, although there may be an association between the exposure and outcome at the population level, it's possible that there may be no association at the individual level. In other words, the individuals with the outcome may not be the same as the individuals with the exposure. Cross-sectional studies are higher up the hierarchy of evidence. They essentially take a snapshot of individuals during their journey of life and compare the individuals with each other at that point in time. Some will have the exposure and the outcome, some will have neither the exposure nor the outcome, and some will have one but not the other. This is a good way of determining whether there really is an association between the exposure and the outcome, but it doesn't tell us anything at all about the individuals and their journey before the snapshot or after it. Case control studies start with people who have the outcome or the disease. These are the cases. They are then matched with other people who don't have the outcome, but are otherwise somewhat similar. For example, they might be similar in age, gender, occupation, socioeconomic status, and so on. These are the controls. Case control studies look backwards in time and seek to determine whether there is a difference between the cases and the controls in their experience with the exposure of interest. Cohort studies move in the opposite direction to case control studies. They start with a group of people and follow them forwards on their journey of life, noting whether they acquire the outcome of interest and/or whether they experience the exposure of interest. If they have the outcome or exposure, when did that occur? Finally, we come to intervention studies, which are strongest in the hierarchy of evidence. An intervention study is very different from the other study types, which just involve observing participants and not changing anything about them. In an intervention study, the researchers actually do something to one group of participants by exposing them to something, but they don't expose another group. They then analyse whether the two groups have different levels of the outcome of interest. Now let's go back to the lesson and look at each of these study types in detail.